Hi, going to be going over the orderIT trading system for the 9th of December 2020. We've had 11 trades on that day. 3 were indicated as buys and 8 were identified as short sells. First trade is MGI. It's called MoneyGram International Incorporated. It tripped at I'm on the wrong one. Trade time. First trade is actually CLDR. It's called Clodair Incorporated. It tripped at 11 a.m. at a price of $12.49. It was a buy trade. It closed at $12.21, down 0.81%, so it actually is down from when it tripped. 11:30, so it tripped around this area. I can see in this part here where it's about half an hour, just around a time where it was above its tripping price. And as you can see, it just dropped afterwards. I'll consider it a buy or a positive trade because there was a point in time where it was above its tripping price for a good amount of time to get out. Take a look at the indication. OBB, sideways, not showing strongly, but sideways, and then bouncing back and forth in the afternoon, even though a good portion of it was down. And MACD showing it came up morning and just dropped till mid-afternoon. Recovered a little bit at the mid-afternoon and the day too, so it looked like it was recovering somewhat. DI again showing positive movement in the morning and dropping heavily negative in the afternoon, and pretty much negative all afternoon. The Bollinger Band showing the same thing. It came up and it just dropped. But the good thing is afternoon Bollinger Band showing that it was moving sideways. So a trade that would have had to have been monitored, a stock that would have had to have been monitored to at least get out when the opportunity arrives. Next trade is AA. That's Alcoa Corporation. It tripped at 12:28 p.m. at a price of $22.93. Indicated as a short sell. It closed the day at $22.71, down 2.49%. So I consider another positive trade. And as you can see, OBV pretty much showing it just dropped till mid-afternoon and moved sideways. MACD actually was down and bouncing back and forth. Actually was making a recovery MACD-wise mid-afternoon. End of the day though, it was reverting back to negative, but it did make a recovery mid-afternoon. DI, look, it very strongly negative till mid-afternoon, bouncing back and forth. So MACD and DI are actually showing more positive there. Look, Bollinger Band just showing a drop and then moved sideways. And end of the day is actually moving downward, so that definitely was a downward trend stock, and it definitely end of the day would have been a positive trade on a short sell operation. Next trade is AZN. It tripped at 1:03 p.m. at a price of $53.91. It was a short sell. It closed the day at 54.04, so it closed up even though it was down 1.24%. And it actually made a recovery early morning too. So that stock, let's see, 130. So around here. Okay, so this period here, time here, was about half an hour roughly of time where it was below its tripping price, and then recovered. So I consider that still a positive trade because there was opportunity to get out where it was down below its tripping price, even though you can see it somewhat recovered a bit after its tripping price. OBV Yeah, it just dropped, and then you can see the recovery. So basically, it's mimicking somewhat the price. MACD again showing it dropped and then recovered. DI showing again dropped, recovered a little bit. It was recovering by the end of the day, but it was heavily negative. That's a good thing about DI. It shows you the strength of the movement direction, and you can see in the afternoon it was heavily moving negative. And Bollinger Band showing the same thing. You know, it was somewhat moving steadily down to the middle day, and that's where it tripped somewhat, and then recovered a little bit, and end of the day recovering. So it was somewhat making a recovery by the end of the day, but still a potential trade because it did drop below its tripping price. Trace here, next trade is M Macy's Incorporated. It tripped at 1:30:28 p.m. at a price of $11.54. It was a short sell. It actually closed at 11.67, and it was actually up 1.30% from previous close. So we have to see if there's a point. Let's see. Okay, here you can see there's a drop right afterwards. Look, 11:48, 11:44. So there's a good half an hour time here where it was below its tripping price, but you can see it actually made a recovery after that. So I consider that a positive trade, even though it was a short period of time to get out on that stock, but it was still possible. OBD showing somewhat moving negative, and then basically moving sideways in the afternoon. MACD actually, interestingly, only showed a very short period where it tripped, moving a little bit negative, but majority of the day, actually, MACD is showing this stock is moving positive. That's MACD-wise, so, you know, this happens to be that indication on averages. DI, though, look at DI, was moving negative until it was moving negative until that little point in the mid-afternoon where it was making recovery, and then bounced back and forth. End of the day, it was still making a recovery. And the Bollinger Band, yeah, showed that it moved down, and then technically showed moving sideways. So another trade that would have had to have been monitored, stock that would have had to have been monitored to get out when the opportunity arose. Next trade is MAC. I think that's Macerich. Yeah, Macerich Company. Tripped at 1:34:56 p.m. at a price of $11.98. It was tripped as a short sell. It closed the day at 12.21, up 2.09%. So check to see 134, roughly around this area. 150. There's a little window in here, just almost half an hour where it was below. About half an hour was below. I consider that a positive trade, even though, again, it's another trade, another stock that you would have had to monitor to get out when the opportunity came about to get out. OBV somewhat moving sideways morning and then actually recovering. MACD showing that it actually was moving negative until the mid-afternoon and then making what a fairly good strong positive movement. Yeah. And DI, again DI somewhat mimicking MACD. It was somewhat negative, very strongly negative in mid-afternoon, and then make the recovery in the afternoon, even though it was bouncing back and forth. So at the end of the day, it actually was going down again. Bollinger Band, yeah, coming down, and you can see the small recovery or steady recovery in the afternoon. And at the end of the day, it was making a final downward trend, so it was moving negative by the end of the day. So the opportunity was there. Again, you would have just had to monitor. Next trade is CREE. That's Cree Incorporated. It tripped at 1:40:02 p.m. at a price of 97.96. That was a short sell indication. It tripped at, it closed at 96.37, down 2.72%. Even though it actually made a fairly strong recovery early morning here, but it was a positive trade because it closed below its tripping price. So by the end of the day, you could have made a positive trade on that one. I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm trying to identify the stock and I'm missing it based on matching the time that I'm looking at to the time that's indicated in the orderIT system. 13:30 on that one, 13:34 on that one, 13:40, 1:40. Okay, this is stock right here. Whew, okay. Okay, so OBB, showing that it dropped to mid-afternoon, then basically moving sideways, a little bit of recovery by the end of the day. MACD showing that it dropped, and then you can see it was making recovery mid-afternoon to the end of the day. DI very strongly negative mid-afternoon, but it was pretty much negative most of the day, and then making that little recovery. Bollinger Band, showing it just dropped, and then started moving sideways. So it pretty much was, recovering at the end of the day, but did come above its tripping price. So in the day you would have been out before it recovered. Next trade is DB, Deutsche Bank, and I can't say that last word. It tripped at 1:40:12 p.m. at a price of 11.20. It again was a short sell, and it closed 11.23 above its tripping price, down 1.84% though. You can see it's making recovery here early morning, but was it down 140, 130, 130, 140? Look, it came down 119. There's a good half an hour here where it was down below its tripping price, but as you can see it made a bit of a recovery at the end of the day. So another tricky stock, obviously. OBB, showing it somewhat moving down and making a recovery. MACD down. Actually, no, MACD is showing it was actually moving upwards in the late morning, early afternoon, and that dropped in the mid-afternoon. And it made a recovery. Actually, MACD is showing that it was mostly positive. DI, though, again, one of those points where DI and MACD are showing reversal, and that DI is showing majority of the day it was actually negative. MACD is showing majority of the day that it was actually moving positive, and DI is showing majority of the day it was moving negative. So we have two conflicting indicators here. DI, though, was showing early morning it was very heavily negative. End of the day, though, they're both showing that it was positive. Basically, moved back up. The Bollinger Band actually is the absolute interpretation. You can see that, it was moving down and then making a bit of a recovery in the day. So a tricky trade, but there was a period where you could have got out positively wise. Next trade is CNK. That's Chemmark Holdings Incorporated. It tripped at 235.04 at a price of 15.24. It was a buy trade. It closed though at 15.15. Though it was up 0.87%, and look, you can see early morning it actually rose above its tripping price. So next day afterwards, this definitely would have been a positive trade, but for today, Let's see if there's any period where it came above its tripping price. So it tripped at the 235. No, I don't think so. Look, no. It was moving sideways. And there's no strong period where it was up above. There was a couple of points, but not consistent. So I'll check to see what that one says. 235. OBV is showing somewhat a positive movement. MACD, positive in the morning, positive mid-afternoon, negative for the rest of the time, so not very, very strong. DI showing positive in the morning, positive. DI and MACD are showing somewhat the same there. Bollinger Band, yeah, it tripped and then started moving sideways. I'll consider this a possible trade, not a strong possible, because it wasn't showing any consistent positive movement for a period of time, and you can see the Bollinger Band basically showing that it was bouncing back and forth. End of the day, it's moving sideways. The positive point on this is that you can see just from the stock itself that early morning it was up above its tripping price. So while not a positive trade on the actual trade day, positive trade on the day after. So if you held on to the stock the day after, you can see you would have made a profit. So not an absolute positive, but in the end would have been a positive. Next trade is CNC, Centen Corporation. Centen, that's the only way to pronounce it, or think I can pronounce it. Tripped at 3:05:02 p.m. at a price of 63.18. It was a short sell. It closed today at 63.45. It though was down 2.4%, but it did rise above its tripping price. So we'll see if there's a period of time. So it tripped right around this point, and we can see that it did drop and was down. Yeah. So there's a good almost an hour of time where it was down below its tripping price, but as you can see at the end of the day it made a recovery price wise. Let's see what the analysis is going to represent. LBV showing that it was somewhat moving downwards, and you can see at the end of the day though it made that increase. MACD, early afternoon, mid to late afternoon, it was moving negative. The end of the day is making a positive. So MACD kind of like half and half. DI though, it was showing, and again, very strong negative movement in early afternoon, and then it was making recovery, and bouncing back and forth, but basically it was making recovery in the day. Bollinger Band, Bollinger Band just showing that it was moving downwards, and then somewhat moving sideways, and that little bit of recovery at the end of the day. So that stock was recovering at the end of the day, but there was a period of time where you could have gotten out and made a positive trade. Next trade is MGI, MoneyGram International Incorporated. It tripped at 3:15:10 p.m. at a price of 6.18. It was a buy trade. It closed above its trade, so it technically by the end of the day it closed above the tripping price. Only 1 cent, but again, most likely you probably would have traded at least to the point where 1 cent would have been a positive trade, but it was still down 2.98% over the previous close. And you can see at the end of the day it was actually moving sideways. So there were periods where it was actually above. I consider positive because it ended the day at positive. And there was periods at the end of the day after it tripped where it was above its tripping price by a couple of cents. So there was definitely opportunity, and you could have closed the end of the day above its tripping price, or it did close the day above its tripping price. 15, okay. Look, OBV is showing that it's moving up. MACD showing that the afternoon period, the mid-afternoon, it was actually up, moving up a good amount, and at the end of the day moving sideways. And interestingly, DI showing, MACD was showing negative in the early afternoon, and DI showing again early afternoon, but it was showing that it was heavily negative this early afternoon, so that's showing the strength of it moving negative was strong, and then it just made a recovery, and by the day it was still making a recovery. And you can see Bollinger Band, same thing. Look, it came down, and then for the afternoon it was basically recovery. So it's a good day activity for this stock. Next trade is CNP. Center Point Energy Incorporated tripped at 3:20 p.m., so near the end of the day on that one, obviously. It was a short sell. The tripped price was 22.08, but it closed at 22.23. So we say, look, 3:20. No, that doesn't look like a positive trade because it was recovering right after its tripping price. Well, that though, OBV just showing that this stock was moving down. MACD is actually very much moving sideways and then making a recovery at the end of the day. DI though showing strong negative movement for the majority of the day. Bollinger Band showing negative movement for the end of the day, and the end of the day itself, you can see is where I made that. I'll consider that a possible trade, just because indicators showing somewhat a downward trend. Obviously, there was no point after the tripping price that it came down below its price that it tripped, which would have been positive. So the result is that ended up being possible, but not an absolute trade. So we have 9 trades out of 11 that I consider positive, which is 81% possible trades for today. Even though if you actually looked at the, this must be showing early morning activity, the market indicators. Yesterday the market was down a lot. It was down like both all the market indication definitions were heavily down a lot. So I thought this actually would show the previous day, but it's not. It looks like it's showing early morning activity. So this day was actually down a good amount, which kind of explains why we got 9 out of 11 trades today tripping as downward trends and sell trades. So it is a consequence of the day activity. But again, I think that the system itself still had the opportunity to identify a good number of stocks that could have been traded positively for the day. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.